What is going on, guys? Brian with the Rational Radical. And there has been a lot of talk since the election of Donald Trump, his second term, because why not? That he has some sort of massive mandate, a big, huge mandate. But it kind of seems like that's not the case. There's a lot of talk in left-wing circles, of course, that he doesn't have the mandate, but there's reasons for that. It's because while initially his popular vote seemed, relatively okay, it has really dwindled since the remaining votes have been counted. Now, I know counting votes is stealing the election. I know counting votes is just this unforgivable sin, especially if it's not going your way. But the fact remains the same, that in California, several blue districts, large districts, and states where their voting systems aren't as established or streamlined, there's a lot of mail-in votes, hand-counted votes, recounts that are still being counted, which has led to some interesting theories and claims by Marjorie Taylor Greene, especially in California, where some of the House races are not exactly going their way, even though it initially looked like it was going to be a bigger majority. It looks like we're going to end up with a 215, 217 until the special elections next year. But a story from the LA Times that delved into this a little bit makes it a little more nuanced. As Trump's lead in the popular vote shrinks, does he really have a mandate? In his victory speech on November 6, President-elect Donald Trump claimed Americans had given him an unprecedented and powerful mandate. It's a message his transition team has echoed in the last 3 weeks, referring to his MAGA mandate and a historic mandate for his agenda. But given that Trump's lead in the popular vote has dwindled as more votes have been counted in California and other states that lean blue, there is fierce disagreement over whether most Americans really endorse his plans to overhaul government and implement sweeping change. The latest tally from Cook Political Report shows Trump winning 49.83% of the popular vote, with a margin of just 1.55% over Kamala Harris. That's the thing, he didn't get over 50%. But at the end of the day, here's part of the problem, and this article is indicative of it. Well, yeah, might be right. He doesn't really have a mandate for half the shit he's talking about. He distanced himself on the campaign for most of Project 2025, and now he's implemented most of their architects and, writers and authors of Project 2025 into his administration, or at least a substantial amount of them, and they're leaning into Project 2025 hard. Most Americans didn't really want that. They just wanted change. They wanted to get away from Joe Biden, who they, after the debate performance, it was pretty obvious dude wasn't capable of running another term, and they viewed Kamala as the establishment candidate, especially when she's running to the right and alienating a lot of other voters. I mean, there's a lot that could be said about the Kamala campaign, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, there's enough disagreement on the far left, the progressive left, the neocon left, to have internal discussions for the next 30 years. But at the end of the day, arguing whether or not Donald Trump has a mandate isn't super productive. It's just not. This is the kind of shit the right does. They set the narrative, they set the conversation, and then the left and the Democrats jump in to argue that point, and it doesn't help anything. Most Americans are going to know whether or not they wanted it as stuff starts getting implemented. Now, he's not a true populist. Let's get that right out of the way. He's not a true revolutionary or change candidate. Let's get that out of the way because, I mean, if he is a change candidate or any sort of revolutionary candidate, he's a revolutionary Reagan conservative. And just like Reagan, most of the changes he do are going to affect America for decades to come. And I don't say this with any hyperbole in mind or trying to be dramatic, but almost every major political issue of our day, every major inequality, homelessness, the medical crisis, media distrust, it can all be linked almost directly back to Ronald Reagan. And Donald Trump is going to be Ronald Reagan 2.0. In 20, 30 years, we're going to look back at this time and be like, Jesus Christ, he burnt the system. Social safety nets are gone. How the fuck do we fix it? That's if the left keeps falling into the same old traps they did for the last 8 years, where Trump says something ridiculous, Trump does something ridiculous. They make bald-faced claims that are easily disproven, but they dig their heels in. And instead of moving on and just trying to find a better way to fight that, they keep trying to argue the point, belabor the point. Trump's already moved on to the next thing. By the time you've gotten your message out, Trump's already moved on to something else. He's already moved on to talking about eating guinea pigs in Argentina or MS-13 bringing in illegal Chinese immigrants. The left needs to stop letting the right define where the game is being played. Imagine this is a game of football. The right is coming out on the field, going about 10 yards away from their field, from the Democrats' field goal, setting the 50-yard line there and saying, okay, this is the halfway point. And Democrats, they rush to that line and go, oh, this is halfway? Okay, we'll meet you in the middle. No, that's not where most people are. Most people don't want to ban books. Most people don't give a fuck about where somebody is taking a dump. This culture war shit that the left keeps getting baited with, it really doesn't affect people's lives all that much. The right keeps going further and further and pushing the point more and more to own the libs. And yeah, it's fucking horrendous, the shit they're doing. But the left doesn't do anything substantial, at least the establishment Democrat left. They don't do anything substantial to block any of it. So that's kind of where we find ourselves, is another crossroads of, are we going to keep arguing whether or not Donald Trump has a mandate, or point out the actual policies he's doing are complete garbage and are going to completely destroy the American system? I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, they're talking about running Kamala back in 2028. The Democrat establishment hasn't seemed to have learned a whole lot. Some have, though, and I have that for you next. It seems like Nancy Pelosi is going a bit scorched earth on the Democratic Party. So, at least on Joe Biden. So we'll kind of see what we got, and yeah, until then, peace.